welcome back to my channel. So today we will continue about the medical terminology. So first one is problem or abnormal, that is dyspnea. Mal, that is bad, for example maladaptive. Itis, that is inflammation, for example sinusitis. Plasia, that is process of growth or growing. Plasm, growth or formation. Oma, that is tumor, for example carcinoma. Trophy, that is growth, for example hypertrophy. Pathy, that is disease, for example neuropathy. Osis, condition or any abnormal condition, that is meiosis, for example meiosis. um, EA, abnormal condition. Ism, ISM, that is state, for example hyperthyroidism. IC or EAL, are related to some process, that is cephalic or esophageal. Meta, change, for example metaplasia. Status or static, that is maintenance of normal condition, for example hemostasis. Dynamic, that is changing, for example hemodynamic. Lytic or lysis, that is destruction of anything, for example hemolytic. Then megaly, that is enlarged, for example acromegaly. Penia, that is decreased, below or lower than normal, for example cytopenia. Anemia, that is relating to blood condition, for example anemia. Then ectomy, that is excision or removal, for example appendectomy. Otomy, that is incision or cutting, for example tracheotomy. Ostomy, S, that is to make whole, for example colostomy. Scopy, that is to view, for example microscopy. Graph or graphy, that is process of recording, for example sonography. Gram, that is recording, for example mammogram. Plasty, that is surgical repair, for example angioplasty. Therapy, that is treatment, for example as we can say chemotherapy. Chemo, that is chemical, example chemotherapy. Echo or sono, that is sound, for example echocardiogram. Electro, that is pertaining to electrical charge, for example electrocardiogram. Anti, opposed to, for example antibodies. Pro, that is before proceeding, for example progenitor or pro-inflammatory. Then centri, that is center, for example centrifuge. Then fibro, that is fiber, for example fibroblast. Thrombo, that is clot, for example thrombocytes. Plasto, germ cell, for example blastocyte. Blast, suffix, that is progenitor cell, for example fibroblast. Clast, that is absorbing cell, for example osteoclast. Phago or phagia, that is to eat or to consume, that is for example dysphagia. Dips or dipsolia, that is to drink, for example polydipsia. Pepsia, that is digestion, for example dyspepsia. Emesis, that is vomiting, for example hematomesis. Then urea, that is urination, for example polyuria. Straco, that is related to feces. Then proptosis, that is lowered position of any organ. Pyo, that is pus. Then PYR, that is fever. For example, pyrexia. Noso, that is denoting any disease. For example, nosocomial. Chron or chronom, that is denoting to time, anything related to time, that is chronic. Noct or nocti, that is night or dark. For example, nocturnal. Then iatro, that is medicine or doctors. For example, iatrogenic. Steno, that is narrowing. For example, stenosis. Therm or thermo, that is heat or temperature. For example, thermogenic. Psychro, that is denoting to cold, that is psychrometer. Then nosa, that is denoting to any pain or injury. For example, nociceptor. Hernio, that is hernia. Necro, that is death. Praxia, that is motor activity. Taxia, relating to motor activity. For example, ataxia. Lexia, condition involving reading. For example, alexia. Lalia or logia, that is condition involving speech. For example, echolalia. Algesia, that is denoting pain. For example, analgesia. Algia, that is also denoting pain. For example, myalgia. Genic, that is producing. For example, pyrogenic. Genesis, that is origin or development. For example, embryogenesis. Hydro, that is water. For example, hydration. Cholesterol, that is cholesterol. For example, hypercholesterolemia. Lipids, that is fats. For example, hyperlipidemia. Hemoglobin. Glyc or glyco, that is glucose or sugar. For example, hyperglycemia. Fruct or fructo, that is fructose. For example, fructosuria. Galact or galacto, that is galactose. For example, galactorrhea. Steato, that is fatty tissue. For example, steatosis. Natrate or natrate. Prefix, that is sodium. For example, hypernatremia. Cal, that is potassium. For example, hypercalcemia. Hypercalemia. Calci, that is calcium. For example, hypercalcium. Chlor, that is chlorine. Then chole, that is bile. For example, cholecystectomy. Then related to anatomy or physiology. Histo, that is tissue. For example, histology. Hydra or hydro, sweating. For example, hydrosis. Hemo or hemato, blood. For example, hematology. Hapto, that is related to touch. For example, haptic. Halite, that is breathe. For example, halitosis. Proprio, that is pressure, touch. For example, proprioception. Gero or geronto, that is old age. For example, gerontology. Lith, that is stone. For example, kidney stone. Side, killer or killing. For example, homicide. Scepter, that is receptor. If you like the video, press thumb, share and subscribe the video. Thank you for watching.